Are you being called to a role of spiritual leadership in your community? If you think that you might be, let's see if my story resonates with you. Early in my career, I worked my way into a position where I was making six figures, working just a couple hours a day. And I discovered that it didn't really solve any of my problems. For me, the material comforts didn't really do much, and having them made it undeniable that what I really wanted was something very different. I felt empty. I had plenty of money. I could do whatever I wanted, go rock climbing any day of the week. In theory, that should have been great, the perfect work-life balance. But in reality, it was hollow. Something in me was yearning to find a deeper calling. And also, I was noticing something very concerning. The people in my community who weren't doing so well had started turning their attention toward me as a potential source of charity. When I denied them that charity, I quickly became a target for their resentments. I knew that simply giving them handouts wouldn't really solve their problems. What they needed was not money, not really. They weren't physically hungry, but they were starving spiritually. And in choosing to help them, I also found my deeper calling. I decided to accept the responsibility of spiritual leadership in my community when I realized I had the ability to develop the tools that could actually help them. In the end, it really wasn't much of a choice for me. I had to develop these tools for my own reasons. Otherwise, I would just feel defeated by a system that told me I had everything I should want already. To accept things as they were, to me, would have been to just completely give up my agency, and it simply wasn't an option. I always felt compelled to ask, why are things this way? Why is society degrading? Why are so many people struggling? So for me, it was inevitable to go down this path. And that doesn't mean it was easy. And if you choose to go down this path as well, it probably won't be easy for you either. It is hard, but it's not because you don't have the capacity to be successful. It's just because everything around you is designed to make you believe that, to make you fear criticism, to make you fear being ostracized. Your community will call you arrogant for thinking you could be a spiritual leader. Some will see you as dangerous for questioning the status quo. You will be told that humility means accepting things as they are. That is a very convenient tool of suppression for the people in power. But humility is not oriented towards people or institutions or any form of human authority. True humility is about your orientation to the divine, humbling yourself before the divine source. And so if you are genuinely called to be a spiritual leader, then humility requires that you accept that role, because that is what you are being asked to do by the only authority that truly matters. None of these societal patterns are accidental. The atomization, the polarization, the consumerization of our society, all of it substitutes genuine meaning, genuine connection with the divine, with false narratives, materialism, individualism. Everyone tells you the problem is that evil people on the other side. Defeat them, and you'll have the utopia you always wanted. That is simply not how it works. That is a fiction the power structure created to keep you powerless, fighting with people who ultimately want the same thing you want, just have a slightly different perspective on how to go about it. And here is why genuine spirituality is a threat to those in power. If you have a direct relationship with the divine, you take your instructions from a higher source. You become much harder to control. That is why they need you to doubt yourself. That is why they program your community to think of you as dangerous. What makes things hard is that the critics aren't entirely wrong. A spiritual leader who has not done their own inner work, who has not confronted their capacity for the very things that they condemn in others, becomes exactly the kind of dangerous figure that they are warning about. We all have the capacity for everything we believe to be evil. The most evil thing we can do ultimately is to deny that. And so the work that Jung called individuation, confronting your shadow and holding paradoxical tensions rather than being seduced by polarized narratives, is not optional for someone who takes on the responsibility of spiritual leadership. It is the foundation of it. It is what makes you a grounding rod rather than just another person with influence they haven't earned. So, when you think about this, do you feel energized? Do you feel called to action? If so, then don't ignore it. What modern society needs more than anything is individuals who are strong enough to take a stand and be that spiritual grounding rod for their community. So, are you ready? This isn't about credentials, and you shouldn't expect to know exactly where it's going. You are ready if you feel what I felt, that this is not a choice, that there is no alternative, that accepting this responsibility is something that you owe to yourself and something larger than yourself. If this story sparked your curiosity and you'd like to dive deeper into the paradoxical waters of your own spiritual calling, then it's time for you to step into a spiritual leadership role, to embrace the challenge of individuation and become a spiritual anchor in your community.